Hey guys, welcome back to Cam's Corner. I'm your host as always, Camden Revere, and I'm here with a very special episode for us left-handers. Today we're going to talk about hitting railroads, specifically left-handed railroads. This is something that I've been debating doing for a while now. It's a very tough thing to teach, and there aren't that many left-handed players, and so it wasn't until I got enough response from you guys, left-handers around the world that wanted to know about it, that I decided it was time to put together a proper episode. The railroad, as we all know, is one of the toughest serves to hit. And it's a little bit easier for us left-handers, but that doesn't mean that it takes any less skill or any less concentration to pull it off. Because the railroad, for as good of a serve as it can also be an absolutely awful serve if it isn't done properly. And that's what I want to start off with, is that not everybody should be out here hitting railroads, even if you're left-handed, because of the fact that it can be so good or so bad. Unless you've really practiced and gotten it down, it isn't something that should be brought out into a match. So what is a railroad? Let's start with that. Maybe you don't know. A railroad is our serve that for a lefty looks a lot like a lawn tennis serve, where we throw the ball up and we hit that ball with outside spin so that it runs along the edge of the penthouse, and that ball is going to hit the back wall and kick back towards the gallery wall, with the idea being that we want it to run flush with this gallery wall on the return serve corner. And it can eliminate so many options for your opponent. You've seen lots of us pros doing it for years, but if it's not done well and it sits out into the open, then you give your opponent a lot of time to attack that shot. So let's first break down where we want that ball to hit. That's going to be step one here. Step one is, where do we want that ball to land? For a lefty, you actually want that ball to land its first bounce over the yellow line so that it's a legal serve. We want that first bounce to be about hazard first gallery, hazard door. And with this railroad, we don't really want more than 1 to 2 bounces. 2 is our maximum. And so ideally, we would have first bounce over hazard the door, and then it would just miss on the second bounce. And if it just misses the penthouse, it's going to land in the nick, which is where the floor and the wall meet, and be impossible to return. If it bounces twice, if it takes that second bounce on the penthouse, it's going to hit halfway up the back wall, and the spin's going to take it back into this battery wall. So we've got a good option either way. If it misses that second bounce, it's still a legal serve, very hard to return. If it bounces twice, that's what the spin is for, kicking it back into the wall. All right, so that's where we're aiming. Now, how do we hit it? This is the hard part. I like to break it down into 3 steps. Okay. Step one is that we're going to put our racket back. Our grip on this is that we want the V in our hand, between our thumb and our index finger, running up the edge, the corner of our racket. Okay, so that's our grip. Okay, so it's not completely open, it's just open enough. Okay, so step one is that we're going to put the racket back. Now, where you stand in relation to the wall is going to differ from court to court. The more severe the penthouse, okay, the further in you can stand, and the softer the penthouse is, the less flat it is, the further out you're going to want to stand. All right, so for Aiken, I put it at about probably 5-6 feet from the wall at chase 3. All right, and what I'm going to do, first step, is I'm going to put the racket back. Racket is touching my back. It's that easy. If it's touching, you know it's in position. Step 2 is that I'm going to step diagonally forwards towards the corner of last gallery, and I'm going to throw that ball over my knee, my foot. Okay, so that ball should drop just outside your foot. Okay, so yet again, so I can throw it up, look at the bounce, just outside my foot. That's how I know I've got my toss right. Okay, so those are the first 2, and this is the way you can practice. Is racket goes on shoulder, step and toss, ball should end up in front of your foot. If it doesn't, if it ends up in here, you've done it wrong. So this is how you practice. Just arm goes up straight over your knee, okay? And then step 3 from here is that we're going to make contact with that ball at about penthouse height. We don't want to be making contact super high. We don't want to be making contact super low. We want that ball to be running at the height of the penthouse, okay? So we're going to come up, racket back, throw, toss, swing out and around, finishing on the outside of our knee. Okay? The big thing here is, yes, you need to use your wrist and let it go, but the natural open face on the racket is going to create that spin for you. So don't feel like you have to try and do so much. All right? That's the hard part. Now that we know our swing and everything, there's a little adaptation that's going to happen here. Sometimes that ball is going to go too high on the roof, and sometimes it's going to miss. The spin that we're putting on that ball naturally makes it curve away from the penthouse. So you shouldn't be aiming at the edge of the penthouse. You should actually be aiming probably 1.5 feet up the penthouse, right, towards the wall, so that you know when that ball curves, it's still going to hit the roof. All right? So that way, we're giving ourselves leeway for what's going to happen when we spin that ball. All right? These are the major kind of categories within the railroad, but yet again, it's all about practice. I can teach you this, and you can do these things and throw it up, and it's going to go all the way up and do that and go into the back penthouse. And that's why you really have to practice this serve before you start bringing it out into a match. But if you stick to the major 3 criteria that I've given you right here, you're going to have a much easier time doing it. All right, so let's give you some examples to look at.